All right, awesome. Well, I'm Dr. Megan Weis. Really excited to be here, and I just want to thank you guys for inviting me to come. Really appreciate this opportunity to have this conversation. I think I was given guidance for about a half hour to talk about vision and strategy for community engagement for the university. And what I'm really looking forward today are the conversations after, because, I've done a lot of research. I've been a part of the university community for a long time as a student twice, as staff member, as a research professor in a variety of roles, and then of course as a member of our community here in the Midlands. And my family and I have taken advantage of a lot of different things within the university, a lot of community engagement type things with the university that I'll mention in the course, but to be able to share that and be a part of that. So in getting going, I think the guidance I really had today was to address my vision and strategy for community engagement. So I'm thrilled to share it, but I do really want to share that and just level set at the beginning. I'm not sharing a full strategic plan because that's impossible without all the community input for that. So really the approach that I'm taking today is trying to ground in what I think the vision is. Obviously that can be adaptable and working collectively as a group for the university, as what the position description was talking about and doing in the future, but you guys know where I'm coming from and the approach that I would take, and really to bring into that. And so again, everything's adjustable based on input, but based on what I know, what I've learned, what I see, and where I really see some of the possibilities are, and to really share kind of the way I think and kind of the approaches I take, because I think that'll be most informative as we go forward today with that. So I really wanted to share what, anytime you're thinking about strategy and what you want to do and where you're going, you kind of need to know where you're headed for. So I wanted to start off with really the destination as I see for the university, and that's really that USC is recognized as the premier university in the nation for community engagement. When people think community engagement at the university level, particularly R1 large public institutions, they think USC, much like with our first year experience. Number one, our exercise science program. You want to go to the best, that's where you go. Women's basketball with athletics and the other areas with that. So bringing it together, I do know that we're one, and when I looked the other day, I think we're one of 85 right now of major public universities with both the R1 designation and the community engaged institution. But we can be at the top of that list when people start to thinking about it versus being a name they see on the list if they decide to take a look. And bringing that, again, also, with our School of Business and some other opportunities that we have. So again, there is such a basis there just from the start, from so much that we do so well as a university and how we're moving forward. And also that as part of that is that community engagement is really recognized as elemental to USC's core identity. I think when people talk about USC, particularly in community, everyone knows about the research, everyone knows about the basketball, and some of the other things. I'm not sure if community engagement is the first thing that comes out of people's mouths, or like they've really done that. Now if you start talking and be like, oh yeah, Cocky's Reading Express was at my school, or I've met friends at the field outside Blatt with the science, I'm forgetting the exact Greek letters, but the science fraternity that puts on that amazing program with the pumpkin chunkin', because that's what caught our eye first. They're not allowed to actually use real pumpkins. My boys were so disappointed. But apparently facilities didn't like the seeds all in the grass. But it's like this series of science stations, and it's the interactions, and my kids are talking, with USC. So these opportunities that are out there when you start talking to people who live in the community, live in Columbia, live in our surrounding areas, they talk about it. But if you say, what do you think of when you say USC, they're not necessarily talking about it as a community partner and community engaged. And that's really where I would like to be in terms of our surrounding communities and how they view the university, in addition to the research, of course. But also when we as a university talk about ourselves at the highest levels, testifying to Senate Finance. I think that's going on today. Talking with the community engaged side of it. Obviously the R1 and the research money that comes in, but that other side of it in the same breath coming together. So it's really elevated to that level, so that we're really living that mission of that driving the community and economic impact to benefit our larger community. So then the next step for me is, well, we're talking about wanting this with community engagement. What is community engagement? Roseanne, I'm sure you're very, very, very familiar with this slide. But to me, it just makes sense that, what gets measured gets done. In a lot of ways, the community engagement classification is obviously a goal and a priority of the university for a lot of reasons, so it makes sense that that's the definition to use. So I am not going to read it. When I really look at that definition, I actually really like it, and even with my public health background and the way I approach community, I find the definition resonates with me in a lot of ways. And what really stands out for me with engagement, because sometimes I think engagement and outreach and the things we do, like, people came to this program that we did. That's not the same as engagement. That's outreach. They know we're here. But really being able to bring in that element of collaboration and that mutually beneficial exchange. That is what really jumps out to me, frankly, the most, is that mutually beneficial exchange. Because in my public health work, in my public health career, and working in different areas of health sciences in the university, it's the mutual benefit that sometimes, hearing y'all and hearing what y'all do, I don't think this is in your case, but sometimes in the broader community or academia per se, the idea of community engagement is, I'm coming out and I'm doing this research and I'm recruiting folks. And I'll say it, and I've said this within the School of Medicine where I work now, my job in connecting communities isn't to get people for clinical trials. Is that we're working together, we're doing other things. Now that can be a benefit. You can get people access to healthcare they can't get in other ways when you have a clinical trial, especially like experimental cancer research and whatnot. And people in rural areas are extremely underrepresented in those clinical trials because of the access issues. But the goal isn't just to get someone in a clinical trial. It's that mutual beneficial aspect of it. And again, that partnership and reciprocity. So it's not we have this, people come, or we can say they came, okay, we did this for the community. It's the going back and forth. And that really fits into the why, which again, I really like. And I promise this is the wordiest slide. But talking about how it really enriches our scholarship. Our research is better when you have diverse views. I won't hammer it home so much, but when you have all the same type of people, all thinking the same way, you don't get the new ideas, you don't get the mix. Again, and I realize that everything I talk about today is going to be health and public health heavy. That's been my career, so it's to the frame I'm coming from. I think some of those skills really translate well to the broader work, and I promise if given the opportunity, it will be a broader aspect. But in terms of talking about what I've done and what I can talk most in depth about because of my experience, it is in that area. But being able to bring that together, being able to enhance curriculum and teaching and all the work going, having our students go out there, and our students are doing some great stuff, but having them ready to engage an increasingly chaotic world out there that's rapidly changing in a lot of ways, and being able to think independently. Whether we agree with that opinion or not, it's been an opinion that's been thought through and weighed, and being to have all of that, and ultimately, addressing those issues, that the civil justice and the civic responsibility, and contributing to the public good. I always feel a little bit cheesy sometimes in talking to folks, because it's like, what do you really want to do? It's like, when it comes down to it, I just want to do good, leave the world a better place. And sometimes the simplest answer really is the core of it. So bringing it together for that. So my approach to this type of work is I almost always start asset-based, because you meet people where they are, and there are always some assets there to start with that you can build from, that you need to start from. That's not to say that if you're really doing a full assessment of what's going on and what needs to be done, that you ignore gaps or weaknesses or areas. I always like to think through something and poke all the holes in it. And since Lee has been transparent about our previous relationship, he knows that I will come up with every possible scenario. What if, or what do we need to consider to go to that? But really, in going and working and talking, really looking at the assets that we all have. Again, talking through, I don't have all the answers, so I do want to talk about some assets that we have going forward, but it's by no means an exhaustive list. Also, in doing this work, I'm thinking about it in broad categories, informed, frankly, by the current Carnegie application renewal that's going. I think the new framework is coming out in 27, but being able to go through different areas, so broad areas with curricular engagement, civic engagement, and the community partnerships to build upon those and those assets. I have research as an asterisk for a reason, because research is a part of all that, but there's also a totally separate Carnegie research R1, and as we talked about, that is a huge focus, rightly so, of the university. So I want to recognize the importance of research as part of that, and that research needs to be brought in, and that side really needs to be integrated. But to me, as I was thinking about it for today, it wasn't a completely separate category to really dive into. But I want to acknowledge that that is one of our amazing strengths, especially with all the CBPR going on, some of the research that is being done that directly impacts our lives. I know with the School of Public Health, with COVID and being able to look at viral loads in sewage systems. You know, that's research that most definitely helped with the tracking of the university campus, but the Columbia campus and nationwide, since we were leaders in that. So I don't want to ignore that, but it's not one of the broad categories. And also I tend to think through the individual to systemic strategies so that we're hitting people in different areas, because of course, you know, if we're in the classroom, it's really that individual change. But also systemically, there's a lot of different things going on, but is it a cohesive plan, or is it a lot of things going on to bring it together? So trying to think through in that way to bring it to that. So that's type of the approach that I bring, and how kind of categories in my brain works. So in starting to talk about assets, really thinking about the curricular engagement or service learning, learned there's a lot of different words that, you know, you can call it different things, comes down to the same thing. And of course, the Center for Integrative and Experiential Learning is one of the huge assets to be able to build on for the work that we do with the support that's provided students, that's the support provided to faculty and staff. I know I would be learning so much more about the details of that work, but in looking, even being able to provide, you know, small amount of funds for students or faculty for training, for projects to be able to do things. The service learning designated courses, when I was diving into some of the Carnegie things and some and learning about it, that's one of the things looked at, like how is it really integrated into the curriculum and other areas that, you know, for the applications. And just to share personally, learning about the service learning courses, I think it's something to build on, but I'm also super excited about it because right now, planning to teach a course in the fall that we're getting designated as service learning. I'm teaching with Dr. April Hiscox in geography. She knows climate and I know health, and we talk about climate and health impacts. So we do it in the Honors College as a seminar, but super excited because of some of my connections with the South Carolina Public Health Association. They have funding through APHA with Smart Surfaces, which is basically heat islands with cities, so addressing increasing heat in those areas. So we're going to partner with SCPHA for service learning in the city of Columbia. We're figuring out exactly what they're going to do. We have some options, but we've been able to have those conversations. So regardless of how anything else turns out, excited to be a part of some of that civic responsibility and working next fall with that. But a lot of assets there too. I also think it'd be really interesting to know, because I know a lot of classes, they might not be designated service learning, but there's things going on, or people who are bringing in speakers. Again, I know from experience in the School of Public Health when I taught a master's class, in full transparency with Dr. Pearson, we made it a point to bring in practitioners of public health to talk to our health planning class and other students, and try to connect students as much as possible to what was going on out there. And I know that we are not the only folks who do that. So thinking about how can that be captured in a more systemic way to really talk about the full scope of what's going on, because again, in looking, you know, you can find some of the web pages, you can find some of that, but I know so much more is going on. So thinking about how is that done. Talking about civic engagement, as we've already talked about some before. Again, I know I'm going to be learning so much more with the Leadership and Service Center, but many of the things that are front and center, that community partner map, I don't know who made it, but it is fantastic, and I wish I'd known about it before. Okay, I really didn't know, because I'm looking, I was like, this is fantastic, because even just when I get questions from students, because I do try to stay connected to students, even though that's not necessarily my day job, where can I go volunteer? Where can I do this? We work with the Rural Interest Group through my center, you know, looking for volunteer opportunities. We have the folks we work with. I could be like, let's go look here. You know, being able to hopefully expand, bring in more rural areas too. Again, my background and all that, but what an asset in terms of being able to connect. And the organized service Saturdays, the big event, I love seeing that one. And that for some of the service. So being able to build on things that are already branded, already known, already being brought together. Again, I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on with student groups, like our RIG, the Rural Interest Group, you know, they volunteer with food share sometimes. I'm not sure that's necessarily being captured, but that's working there. Also the voter registration and the drives and the efforts going on in the early voting that was happening at Blatt in those areas, and community service ambassadors. So there's so much to really see there. And then obviously a lot is working with that, because as you see students out there advocating within the university or other things. I was watching the debate for House Bill 3927, and the number of USC students who got up and spoke, there was at least 4 or 5 who testified in that 5-hour marathon. They went there, they were prepared, they stayed, they were awesome. And it's like that's coming from somewhere. So we have that going on, building on that, celebrating that in different areas, and making sure that as many students that have that desire and to learn have that opportunity. Also thinking about the community partnerships. I want to mention again, of course, the assets with that, the mutually beneficial, reciprocal, and asset-based. That's like my mantra right now. And bringing that, that really to me overlaps a lot with what we were talking about with some of the civic responsibility as well. But there are so many relationships that have already been built through the Leadership and Service Center, through other areas, the schools and colleges, and again, individually through faculty and staff, because I know there's definitely faculty that go to local high schools and have partnerships and work and do that. How can that be built along? Criminal justice, working with the prisons, some of the archaeological research and work being done with the Savannah River site for the Department of Energy. So again, really bringing that all together to bring that in different ways. And some of the more informal things. Again, some of the things I know a bit more about is Food Share South Carolina. That started within our School of Medicine. Full transparency, the center, my current center, the Center for Rural and Primary Healthcare, funds that, and it is in my portfolio area. So I sign off on that funding right now. Not the only funding, but part of it. But starting within some of the primary care systems and the primary care offices through Prisma, and the partnership that the School of Medicine formerly had with Prisma. It's the thing now. But being able to provide and share healthy food, meeting those nutritional needs, that's really grown in a lot of ways to some specific programs as part of the national movement for food as medicine, in different areas where helping folks who don't have access necessarily to healthy foods get access to those healthy foods, because that is so critical to managing health, especially with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic disease. It's not on the slide, but the School of Public Health with the food as medicine work that is going on, and a technical assistance center that's being built. Full transparency, I'm helping to fund some of the rural expansion of that too. Not me, my center. But have had great talks, but really being able to help those smaller groups who are building those in rural areas be able to do it in a sustainable way, because there are opportunities for billing and whatnot through Medicaid today, through some of those things. So being able to build on that, but that is expertise, and the academic expertise that is from the school, from the university, going to the community and truly being partners with folks on the ground and providing that technical assistance, working with the local food share hubs and the people living in those local communities doing the food share hubs, providing expertise, but the folks in the local communities are the ones in charge, being able to bring that together. The Center for Community Health Alignment, again, based within the Arnold School of Public Health. I met Julie when she was just about graduating from, Julie Smithwick, the head of that, graduating from our MSW program. And essentially, Sicha started as her project as a MSW with Passos at Lexington, and grew into Passos, working with Latino perinatal health with Latinos, and some of the community health worker model that is all over the place now, but being able to grow to that, and now providing training for community health workers all across the state, going back to communities and working that, the continuing education, the leadership, sharing it across the nation, so even beyond just the Midlands community that the position description was more focused on, but nationally, pulling that together. All for SC with the Department of Education is involved in some of the conversations with that early on from the health side, bringing that, but working with a school district in Fairfield, really bringing some of the university expertise to help raise student health, student learning, student achievement in those ways. Health and education are so tied together because a healthy child can't learn. So to me, it's all the same thing. And also more education, you're healthier later in life. So it all comes together. But so many opportunities within the school districts and other areas, again in the Midlands, the partnerships with the City of Columbia, with the voting, bringing together smart surfaces. I think the sustainability, one of the living communities the sustainability one worked with that smart surfaces project that I mentioned before, and bringing that together. So again, that mutually beneficial work. And then just fraternity and sorority life. I know there's a lot going on. I know there's some events. I talked about some of them. And philanthropy is very important in student life. So not limited only to the fraternity and sorority life, but it's definitely an asset to be tapped into with the organization and commitment within that. So in terms of my view for opportunities and approach moving forward, I do think, again, based on what I see, I really look forward to hearing feedback and more, but an increased systemic focus, which appears to be an area that the university is moving towards with the posting of this position and the office and all of that, but having all the wonderful things together, but having that systemic focus and being able to bring it together and some of the cohesiveness. Building upon a self-study, I'm sure with the current application, a lot of assessments being done, but having that be something that is more systemic and yearly, for some uniform collated data points, so some uniform data collection across different types of programs, being able to get some information. I would think something both qualitative and quantitative, if there were some data points about, you have people reach, different things, all of that, that's really important that you need to put out, but also an effort within the different colleges and schools and maybe even departments, potentially like key informant interviews or different conversations throughout the year. Again, it can be structured in different ways to get to maybe some of the things you don't know that's going on to ask about. I find when working with programs and we're doing the evaluation, you don't have the things that they need to submit. Because the center I work for right now is legislatively funded, so of course we make sure we have the evidence to present to our legislators in our yearly testimony. But it's when I have the meetings with the groups that, this happened, and it provides so much richer context, bringing that together. So to bring that together in some sort of way, whether it's like yearly or quarterly interviews or different meetings and bringing along. Really connecting and elevating the work and sharing the story more, as we were talking about in the beginning. I think everyone has the story to share. Is it the first thing people think of when they think about the university? But being able to bring that together in other ways and really highlighting the reciprocity. Okay, I'm going to let you read that word since I'm having it read that one. With that, but really, really highlighting, it's not just what the university has done for you. The old joke when I worked at the Department of Public Health, we're from the government, we're here to help. It's like, no, thank you. So, obviously highlighting things we're doing, but also highlighting how what we're doing is helping us and making the university stronger and helping us serve our mission in different ways and turning the lens around to the community to really be able to talk about the benefits and how they've helped and all that. So they have a chance to brag. Either whether it's the school district or the city or the different areas. So like in communications, really kind of flipping the frame a little bit. Not just the testimony to help us, but the testimony that really shows and that they're able to really brag on it and brag on that work. I do think a formal strategic planning process mentioned in the position description, and I happen to agree with it. But I think that process really needs to perhaps be based on some of what we learned and learning more to bring into that, but it really needs to involve both the university and the surrounding community. So really identifying surrounding community beyond just Broad Midlands and who those people are and bringing that together in a different way and putting together a structured. And I'll be glad to talk more about some of the different ways I've approached strategic planning. I didn't want to get too much into the weeds on that in this shorter discussion. But part of that, I do feel that a regular meeting advisory council, whether it's strictly for the strategic plan or for the office or for community engagement for the university, that has some of the key university partners and key partner stakeholders meeting regularly. And that could mean quarterly, it could mean twice a year. I'm landing on quarterly to start or whatever, but again, that's the details. But having open, constant, consistent communication with our partners and where we are trying to go and what they're seeing they need, and really being able to identify those areas that we can work together for mutually beneficial ways and make those partners, and how whoever in this position learns more about what is going on in the university, connecting with those community partners, hearing what the needs are, and helping to help build and make those connections. And that would be a starting point for that. I really want to highlight the importance of the perspectives of both the university community and our broader community. Again, I think that's more than just the advisory council, but I put it on there again because I think it's incredibly important. And again, I do want to recognize that our research enterprise is doing so much. Again, to go back to health sciences with the work with brain health and the hospital that is probably going to be funded in different ways to serve the community, but and bringing that research out, but also athletics. Dawn Staley shows up someplace. I'm gonna go, but the way she's been able to elevate different ways with her foundation and just opportunities for everyone in women's sports. Really utilizing our alumni network. We're the flagship university in South Carolina, and a lot of our alumni stay here. Really being able to tap into that. I'm very interested to learn if that's already being done in ways that maybe was, publicly on the website or other things, but how to really tap in to the assets and the folks that we have that already are super engaged with the university to help build that and grow upon that. But with the very specifically and with intentionality, not just like, hey, what can go on, but think about different things and be intentional in what we ask and how we move forward with them, bringing that together. But ultimately, everything that I've talked about in terms of the perspective and approach, it all really comes down to relationships and trust. So in going to that bigger vision of, being the top of mind, the premier large public university for community engagement, none of that's going to happen without the building of relationships and trust. So to me, that's job number one for this position, for this office, whoever is in that, to really be able to make something institutional. Sometimes relationships and trust, they start with the individual and the people. So again, I was thinking individual systemic. It starts with two people who start to trust each other, right? But then when you can start to build that and build a system and a structure in place that can withstand staffing changes, it can withstand disagreements, because disagreements happen. Conflict isn't bad. How you handle it sometimes isn't as productive. But there will be tension. There's tension between the city and the university in different areas for different topics or different things, but having that relationship and trust to be able to work through them so that we don't lose the work and the good work along together to bring that together. So I just want to end with that, which, talked for about 30-ish minutes about everything, but again, job number one is relationships and trust, and that starts with being open, being as transparent as you can, being able to speak the truth to each other, and pulling that together and really working to institutionalize that, and that takes time and a lot of listening. So with that, I want to stop talking and start listening, because that's really where some of the true work gets done. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share kind of my thoughts and approaches as we start today's visit.